is mad, I get more butt than ashtrays. The fair one, I get mine the fast way. Ski mask way, and the ransom notes. Far from handsome, but damn a nigga tote. More guns than roses, foes is shaking in their boots. A visible bully, like the gooch, disappear, vamoose, you whack to me. Take them rhymes back to the factory. I see the gimmicks, the whack lyrics, the shit is depressing, pathetic. Please forget it. You're mad cause my style you're admiring. Don't be mad, UPS is hiring. You should have been the cop, hip-hop. With that freestyle, you're bound to get shot. Not from Houston, but I rap a lot. Pack the gat a lot, the flame's about to drop.
Here comes a brand new flavor in your ear. Time for new flavor in your ear. I'm just kicking new flavor in your ear. Like a brand new flavor in your ear. Here comes a brand new flavor in your ear. Time for new flavor in your ear. Word up, no rap, no crap, your boy. Want to grab my body, too late, hold it for me. I'm straight rap great, bust the head straight and dreads, I'm everlasting. Like it's so on Procast, a TechMi, when I rhyme, plus I climb, word is mine. Your album couldn't with one line. It's been 3 years since your last tear, but now I reappear, your heart pumps fear. To your gut, did your girl's butt. I scraped it, shaped it, now she won't strut. I smashed teeth, off your beef, no relief. I step on stage, girls scream like I'm Keith. You won't be around next year, my rap's too severe, can't get bad flavor in your ear. Here comes a brand new flavor in your ear. Time for new flavor in your ear. I'm kicking new flavor in your ear, like a brand new flavor in your ear.
Okay. I'm reloaded.
With our super guru, B. B, it's been a while. Tell us what's going on in the world of technology.
Certainly. So good to be back. We've been kind of monitoring technology and any sort of changes and adaptions especially during the quarantine time. I know that's been a majority of our focus to help listeners and everything during this time and provide them with any opportunities that arise. Lately, not a ton has changed. We're seeing little things being added here and there, but not major things that could be taken advantage of. But we did come across something recently that is very, I think, appeals to the interest of all peoples. And that would be a patent that was filed by the United States Post Office back in February of 2019 and was published this last August 13th of 2020. And why that is such a big deal is that, just mute my stuff here, is because the current systems that were in place, there was a lot of doubt and stuff behind what voting systems could be trustworthy. There's been proof of tampering with voting machines and the software and stuff in the past. And so the patent that was released is a voting system that uses blockchain technology to facilitate and secure the votes of the individuals to a thing like a public chain. And which I'll break down how that works here in just a little bit. But it's a technology that is foolproof in the finance world of like cryptocurrencies. We're even seeing some newer what they call fintech or financial tech moving into blockchain methods because of its foolproof way of it can't be fooled. And so to see it being applied to a voting system is actually quite exciting. And the when it comes to, let me step back. So there's going to be two sort of people. There's going to be people that understand blockchain already and are nodding their head. There's going to be a set of people that are also going, I don't know if this is going to work because they don't understand the way that blockchain works in itself.
And so I am that person. So please explain that to me. how does this work, and what does it mean for people like myself?
Yeah, I was trying to think of a really good like analogy that would be simple enough because you already know about it, and to relate it to something that you do on a daily basis with your show and your listeners and stuff. So I'm trying to run with this one and tell me if it's too confusing, but I want you to think of like a music album, right?
Mhm.
So in your music album, you've got different songs, and so these different songs are going to kind of pertain to a block in what I'm referring to. Now, every single song and its title and all the music notes and everything in there, they all have, their own characteristics, but you combine it all and you end up with this integer value of time, right? So this song could be 2 minutes and 13 seconds long. Okay, so if we were to kind of relate this to a blockchain, right? Every single block has its own, after things are hashed and gone through encryption and stuff, they end up with their own number, kind of like we're going to use the length of the song, 2 minutes, 13 seconds for song 1. Now on song 2, that number is the first thing that goes into that song, right? So it is actually dependent. Song 2 would be dependent upon song 1, the value of all the music notes, everything in there not changing by 1 bit, or else it would throw off that time that it currently has, right? So imagine the whole album, every block being a different song, and each one has its own number, but the first thing that gets recorded into that song is the value of the previous song. So if you tried to go back to song 1 and you're like, well, I'm going to edit this and I'm going to take out this sentence here, or maybe there was a curse word that you got to take off. Well, songs 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way to the end of the album have now all just changed. All the different titles have changed. It's probably not going to make sense. It's going to look weird. It's going to be funny, and it's not going to come out the same way. And it's a very rough way to explain how blockchain works. But you have a recorded transactions. There's a certain amount of transactions per block. The block is then has its own number it's an integer value that comes off of how it's encrypted or hashed, and that is the first transaction on the next block. So you cannot change anything. And with blockchain, it is not just one set of books. This chain is being processed by thousands of different recording blocks, or like they call them wallets in the crypto world, but it'd be server nodes that are validating and making sure that their blockchain is matching 20 plus other blockchains, because if one comes in and tries to be and it's wrong, it gets rejected.
Okay.
So that's why Bitcoin is kind of like was a big thing when it came out, was because it was like there's 100 million copies of the ledger, right? You can't fake it. And so applying that technology to the voting world, we have seen that, wow, okay, this patent uses that technology that can't be fooled. And reading through this patent, it's actually pretty cool what they've done. So it takes what's already kind of existing. A lot of people they'll either go in person and vote, or they will get the mail-in ballot. All of that stuff already has like per election, what election it is, which, unique identifier you are as a person, and, all these other things. And they basically are going to be recording these things into the blockchain of what your vote is done. And you'll be able to look it up. Literally, they have the patent shows a phone app interface that you can register for an election right on your device. You can also vote or scan your ballot, and you can also check to see what your vote is registering is publicly, because you'll have your own unique identifier per I guess per election, right? So it changes so that only you know what it is. And that's where it's, you know, like if you look up your thing and you're like, well, I voted for so-and-so, but it says you voted for this person, you know, that's where you're able to check and go, okay, something's not right. This isn't what I voted for. Like, you'll be able to double check it because,
Oh, wow, okay.
yeah, because, you know, that's the big fear, is that the ballots are being duplicated, or in the instance of Florida, they were finding that depending on which party you were with, there was a D or an R on the envelope that could be seen from the outside. So if somebody didn't want a certain one to get back to the voting place, they would make sure they disappeared. However, this can be done straight through a phone device. It's an encrypted app that connects. And so, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here that is, it's not vague, but it's laid out very, very well, but they don't go into exact details of like how they're going to roll it out or whatnot. I think part of it is already in place because it's using everything that is currently on those ballots. And yeah, so I mean, that's kind of, you know, like going to overwhelm, but there's a, it's an interesting concept to see it out there. And, you know, so I'm just trying to think of like what sort of questions people might have about this certain technology when it comes to this voting and stuff. Because I know that without understanding the blockchain itself, it can be confusing, but once that's out of the way, it's very simple to grasp it. Okay.
Question is, once this is implemented, do you think we'll see a lot more of blockchain use throughout different industries?
Yeah, that's been a really big movement in the last few years. Every year in Singapore, they would hold what they call the fintech or financial tech. So a lot of the banking industries have really jumped in and tried to figure out a way to implement their own sort of blockchain internally, externally. But I know a few years ago, the US government had some experts brought in and they were studying the blockchain very intensely. And we thought at that time, you know, it was going to be, well, maybe they're going to try to see a way if they could crack, you know, Bitcoin or something or whatever. But we actually see it wasn't a nefarious thing. They're actually applying it to things that can benefit the people because of its foolproofness. And it's simple enough on its face that you just go, wow, why didn't we think of this sooner? But, you know, maybe we just didn't have everything in place beforehand or what. I know US is kind of behind in the adoption of blockchain technology in certain areas, but there's a lot of different ideas and stuff that have come forth using it as well. So it's, yeah, I mean, you literally can just do some searches outside the US and you'll find a lot of different ideas that are, encompassing it.
All right. Now, is the problem, because I do remember that one of the biggest conversations was the fact that it wasn't a standardized method. So with this pattern that has been released, would that then change the standardization of it? Or is that specifically for one particular thing?
Standardization for what exactly? Like the voting methods, or?
No, just the blockchain, the blockchain method, or utilization in itself? Or does every industry have its own method in regards to building this particular product?
I think that's going to come back to something a little bit more technical, which is going to be which algorithm is used for what is called the hashing, and what creates the encrypted but intrinsic value of it. I could walk through it, but it is a very, I don't want to overwhelm it. You can look it up. There's really good videos like on YouTube that can explain in a couple minutes just how blockchain works. And if you want to dive down that rabbit hole of the algorithms that are available, there's SHA-256, which is what Bitcoin uses, but there's some standards out there that like SHA-1, SHA-2, and these are all different bit encryptions. So like SHA-2 is a 2048-bit encryption. It's very high encryption, uses a lot of characters to create each hash encryption. In fact, that's what GoDaddy uses on their SSLs right now. To encrypt all the data is done through a very high-end hash system using SHA-2. I think that's what it's going to come down to, is which algorithm they go with. But looking at the diagrams that they've put in the patent, because this ties to databases, state databases, a federal like checks and balance type database. And so the blockchain is just a portion of it, but it is a portion that is publicly it's available to, you can look up stuff publicly that you have done, but without compromising any sort of personal information of your own self. And so I think my biggest question is going to be, as they implement this, how are they going to then move into who is actually a real person and able to vote? We see these things like
that was my question. That was
dead cats. Exactly. Dead cats getting ballots to vote with. And I think a part of that is sort of already set up in here, where it shows on the phone app interface diagram that you can register for an election, meaning per election you register to get your certain identification numbers, and how they prove you are who you are. That I have not quite seen yet, because I think it might vary, but I think it's going to force that particular conversation to be brought out. So it's definitely a push in the right direction of being able to trust a system that your input was heard and is being counted.
That's blockchain in a nutshell.
The technologies existed. They filed for this back in 2019 was the first filing, February 8th. So the technology has existed for the last 18 months. They have had to roll this out or implement behind the scenes. So it's been interesting for sure.
This is what's going on in technology right now. You are now tuned in to Being Africa Allah on Discover Music Channel, and this has been TechMi Pro with our
canopies to boards, fans to no reports. You ain't got the Bentley with 4 doors. KU, RU, PT, Annie. You just bring my bottle of Remy. Recognize a real hit when you hear one. Posting up at the Playboy Mansion. I stomp like Gore-Tex, poetical vortex. Bouncing the jigger in California.
It's over now, move over. It's my turn now, it's over. The game's shut down. It's the N-A-T-I. Oh, you know the rest. Silly how frequently they contest. I done tours across the seas and been across the world. I done it for all y'all, my cats and my dogs. It's over, cause I'm bad to the bone. Leave a real diva to her own alone. I drive a Jaguar, so many different cars. Life is a pop star, shouldn't be this hard. Come on.
It's over now, move over. It's my turn now, it's over. The game's shut down.
Alright, let me get my social situation up real quick. Follow me everywhere on the internet. Africa Live. Hit that underscore, babe.